what's the difference between prevention and preemption? Who'd like to do some defining for us? Steve?
Well, first of all, the way that you've used prevention so far, it doesn't imply force. I mean, we do a lot of preventive things all the time. Diplomacy is about prevention. But if you're talking about the preventive use of force versus the preemptive use of force,
I am.
Generally what we talk about is preemptive use of force is against a threat that is imminent.
Right.
And you use force to interrupt a threat that basically is in motion. Preventive force is against threats that are latent.
Remember that preventive war and preemptive war are distinctly different here. In preventive war, we were talking about power shifting over the course of time, and in preemptive war, we are talking about first strike advantage.
Anissa, what exactly is Russia hoping to demonstrate at this international gathering?
Well, missile defense has been in a deadlock for some time now between the U.S., Russia, and NATO. And basically, Russian officials have already reiterated that sentiment, saying that if that deadlock is not resolved sometime in the near future, of course, they understand how much work needs to be done, that they will have to take responsive measures. Like you said, a preemptive strike. If there is no response from the U.S. or from NATO, this has been an issue for many years now, and Russia has made it very clear that a missile defense system, which started as planned, is already pretty much fully fledged underway in Eastern Europe, in Poland, Romania, even as far as Turkey. Russia sees that as a major threat to its national security, and officials here basically saying that they will have to move forward and take steps to protect.
North Korea threatened the United States on Thursday with a preemptive nuclear strike, raising the level of rhetoric while the UN Security Council considers new sanctions against the reclusive country.
The amendment before us requires that the President submit a plan for a no-fly zone over Syria. I want to compliment the authors for including in this amendment a clause that says that nothing in this amendment is to be construed as a declaration of war or a use of authorization of force. I think that's very important. I think it's very important in our nation today that we are not saying that we are starting or beginning or getting involved in a new war. I do think, however, though, that this amendment is ill-advised for two reasons. Number one, I don't think I know with certainty whether the Syrian rebels will be freedom-loving, tolerant, constitution-toting believers in a Republican form of government, or whether they will institute an Islamic republic that will have no tolerance for Christians and no tolerance of people of any other faith. Secondly, I think it's a bad idea to discuss contingency plans for war. While I'm in favor of the Senate retaining our prerogative to declare war, I believe that the details of the execution of war are in the purview of the executive. In other words, we do have the power to begin or to not begin a war. That is a power the Constitution gave us. But I don't think the Constitution intended to have 535 generals. I don't think it intended to have us explicitly talking about every contingency plan for every possible war in every corner of the globe. I don't think it's best to openly discuss these plans for defending against attack, and especially not for involving ourselves in a civil war. Our nation and our soldiers are weary of war. Our nation yearns for leaders who will strive to keep us out of war. Our nation yearns for leaders who are reluctant to begin a new war or get involved in a new war. I hope my colleagues today will not encourage a rush to war, but publicly clamoring for a plan to become involved in Syria's civil war.
Our show today, the doctrine of preventive force. In 2002, the Bush administration published a national security strategy arguing that in the 21st century, the United States must defend itself not only when attacked, but by preventing certain threats, such as terrorist threats and weapons of mass destruction, from arising in the first place. Is the doctrine of preventive force, striking before we're struck, just? Is it effective? And what can the biggest example of the doctrine in action, the war in Iraq, tell us about the future of preventive force?